keep this short and sweet because it is 11:54. I'm still a little bit sick. I don't know how. I think it's the changes in the weather. First off, this weather has been insane. So if you haven't been able to deal with it, trust me, I have not been able to deal with it either. It's like allergies. I've been doing more journaling. One of the things I read about journaling, shout out Dan Coe, but it's really just organizing your thoughts. The more that you can organize your thoughts and make things seem more clear to yourself, the easier and more efficient your life becomes because of the ability to make your thoughts follow a filter or be filtered. This is a very important message, something that I've been talking to, something I talked about with some of my friends, something I've talked to about like even my parents. This is for anyone who feels like they've been working super hard. You've been putting in a lot of work. You've been very consistent as of recently. You've been grinding. You've been making sure that your efforts are there and you're trying to make sure you show up and make sure you put in the best effort you can in general. But one thing that has been proven to be true is that you're going to have what is called the ebbs and flows, or you're going to have what is called like your highs and lows. Everybody knows this, but not many people talk about what to do when there is no high or low season. It's just very flat line or very smooth. I want to talk about the difference between being content versus being complacent. A lot of people confuse being content with being complacent. Those are not two things, they're very different. Being content and being complacent are two completely different thoughts. Stop seeing contentment as complacency. Stop seeing contentment as failure or settling. Stop seeing contentment as failure or settling. You need to look at contentment with or being content and start associating it with peace, stillness, or clarity. If you don't do that, you're going to find chaos in what should be content. Now, let's get into the difference between being content versus being complacent and why you should be more open and more. I'm going to get into why you need to be more willing to be content and why you should stop seeing contentment as failure or settlement, or why you should see contentment with a more positive vibe or in a more positive light. Being content is not a negative thing. It has negative connotations. Most people see contentment as being lazy or not moving, not progressing, no action, or just stillness that lacks any form of upward or positive incremental growth. That is actually complacency. That would be what you would call settling, or what you might even call failure, to be honest. But in reality, that's not the case. Case in point, like I said, you go to work, right? You've been doing everything very consistent, doing your paperwork, making sure you turn in everything on time, communicating with everyone as thoroughly as possible. But every time you've tried to make a jump, or every time you've tried to increase your value at work, or you try to deliver more, it usually goes unrecognized. Or it might even feel like you're not being seen in those moments of you basically putting in that work or grinding that hard. It's not going to be seen because in that moment, everyone else's eyes and their faces, or not everyone's eyes and their focuses are on different things in different scopes in different areas. But in reality, that time will come where you get recognized, and that's why you need to keep on going, keep on delivering on the thing that you're supposed to deliver. Or let's switch it from being at work. Let's switch it to if you're a fitness person and you are looking to get fit, or you're looking to cut weight, lose weight, or even gain
Man,
weight.
show up.
And that's
No, you stealing, mom. Shut up.
Bitch, I ain't skinny.
Yeah, I said stealing. You stole from that boy. What's his name? Herbo.
So what? That one more time.
Women don't steal. Women say, hey, so you left this.
changes in your body.
Listen here, crackhead.
Don't come talking about crackhead. You say, big little me get high on perk. Perks is the new crack. One thing about a bitch, she'll disqualify herself with a mouth. She sucks and tail.
Every time.
Yeah, I don't kiss and tail.
There is something called a plateau. Anytime that you start to plateau is what we call an area of no growth, where people see it as failure or complacency or an opportunity really to be lazy, when in reality it's just a time to be content. This is a thought or framework of thinking that you can definitely apply to your daily life, so you can see things in a more encouraging, positive, but also in a way that's going to keep you motivated, because motivation is not discipline. Motivation is just gas to fuel the engine. Discipline is the maintenance that has to be done, and the actual care that needs to be done time after time again to make sure that things are flowing in your system or in your engine is what builds true progress to getting to whatever goal that you have. If you don't have that consistency, if you don't choose to follow through day after day, if you don't choose to follow through week after week, or not choose to deliver, you are going to see what is actual failure. You're going to fall back. You're going to actually fall into what is laziness or complacency, when in reality, that is the true negative connotation that contentment gets. I say this to say that being content is the acceptance of peace. It is the acceptance of where you've gone and what you've reached and where you've gone to grow. And then actually recognizing, like, I've done these things to be where I'm at. And I'm also recognizing the fact that I'm in a place where I was trying to reach, where I was striving to be, but without having done those things or making those sacrifices to get to those stages in life, I would not be able to feel this peace in my own efforts, in what I was trying to do in order to succeed or grow. That is contentment. You don't feel contentment when you are backsliding. You don't feel contentment when you're overthinking things. You don't feel contentment when you're in anxiety or anxious and you don't know exactly how to address your own efforts in order to make sure that you're continuing to grow. And that's one thing that I feel like I even struggle with a lot. Like, I get very anxious. I have a lot of anxiety. I've, I've had anxiety even when making these videos. And that's like daily. Like, it's taking me, like I said, I have wrote this down, all these thoughts that I was having weeks ago. And I didn't know exactly how I wanted to go about delivering a message, or how I wanted to go about expressing how I felt about contentment versus complacency. But now I'm doing it. It's a couple weeks later, but that anxiety definitely got to me. So my point to you is that you should not fall into complacency and mistake that for contentment. And you also shouldn't mistake contentment for complacency or failure. Um, Contentment is peace. The reason why I say contentment is peace is because contentment is what you feel. Contentment is what you feel after you've been able to recognize what needed to be removed in order for you to be the success that you are, in order to be happy in what you have. You can't recognize that, you can't feel that, you might still be stuck in figuring out what needs to be removed in order for you to feel true contentment. You might still be in the grind. You might still be working. You might still be looking to grow. Complacency is the exact opposite. Complacency is a lack of willingness. Complacency is a lack of awareness. Complacency is taking anything that you felt like you needed to do and choosing to do the opposite. It's by choice that you don't make the effort to change or don't make the effort to try, essentially. Contentment acknowledges action, it acknowledges verb, whereas complacency, it denies it. Complacency says you won't do this, you did not do this, or you can't do this, and that's why you're stuck in said situation. Whereas contentment says you've been trying, you've been doing, you've been making the efforts to grow, to change. But now we're in a space where all of that has not only been welcomed, or all those efforts have been welcomed, but you're also in a space where you're being able to acknowledge the fact that you've removed and replaced, changed, grown through different situations, so that way you can be better and at peace in where you at now. It's hard to recognize contentment. It really is. Because I struggle with it. I'm someone who, if I'm being honest, I was, like, when I was younger, I ain't gonna say I was forced to play sports, but I played sports my entire life. I played sports year round. Not only that, but obviously I went to school. I had my fair share of extracurricular activities, both in school and outside of school. I'm not saying I had ADHD or anything, which I might have. Who knows? I don't know. But like, I was always feeling the need to do something. And now that I've moved out of my parents' house and I'm more in my own time, I've noticed that when I set out a goal to do something and I don't necessarily start it immediately, that those thoughts in my brain immediately kick in and say like, "Oh, you're a failure. You're not doing anything the right way. You're never gonna achieve your goals." When in reality, it might just take me some time to actually get started. Like I just need a moment to actually sit on what it is I actually want to do in order to grow myself into being something that is, when I want to grow myself into being someone who is a higher and increased perceived value, or when I want to deliver something that is of higher or increased or perceived value. Rome was not built in a day. Steve Jobs did not become an overnight millionaire. Michael Jordan was not a overnight success. Shoot, even LeBron wasn't an overnight success. Everyone had to go through a process of learning new skills, developing new skills, social, emotional, physical, mental skills, so that way they can apply those things to their daily life so that way they could get better. So within that process, you had to have a time where you learned, and then there was a time where you had to learn how to apply. Because the first thing is being aware, having the ability to acknowledge and recognize like, oh, this is something that I need to learn, or this concept is something that I would like to internalize. After it's internalized, you have to learn to apply it, and that can take time in itself. It's never a immediate 1-2. It's like a 1A, 1B, 1C, and then maybe 2. Sometimes it goes through the entire alphabet before it gets to 2. So what people automatically perceive as a 2-step process is not always 2 steps. Contentment is not failure. Contentment is the last thing from failure, truthfully. Contentment is more like a timeout in the middle of a game, or like halftime. Where it's like, okay, I can use this time to review. I can use this time to make adjustments so I can attack the next quarter, or attack the next session, or attack this next season of my life in a much stronger, more efficient way. I feel like oftentimes people see contentment as failure because they don't feel growth. They don't physically see that growth in front of you. When in reality, progress is not linear. There is ups and downs. Like I said, the ebbs and flows. And over a long period of time, some of that does feel like stillness. Thus, where the contentment sits. On top of that, isn't always progress is not always in the amounts that we desire. On a day where you give 100%, sometimes you can see the growth or the progression that is worth 2% because of your 100 your 110% effort. You might get 2% back in growth. But there could also be a day where you only have 5% to give, but somehow you see a 10% growth on your progress for whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you decide to learn. And it's like that. Some things come naturally, some things don't. In some seasons, things are a lot easier to pick up on. Cues are easier to pick up on. People are easier to communicate with. Maybe the finances are easier to deal with. Maybe the gym is a lot easier to work out in. Maybe it's easier to get there. School probably feels like things and concepts are starting to be learned quicker. You're starting to pick up on concepts a lot faster. I feel like sometimes we always are in this state where we want to see this constant growth where it's like, okay, yeah, I want to go from point A to point B. So on day one, I need to get 10%. I feel like we want to see I feel like we want to see this progress where we want to get from point A to point B. So we say in our minds, okay, today I would like to go from point A 10%. So that way I still have 90% to get to point B. When in reality, you might only get 2%. And that 2% feels like nothing because you desired that 10%. You have this perceived amount of growth in your mind of what 10% felt and looked like. So when you only get 2%, which is a fifth of what you desire to get, everything that you progressed and you learned feels like as if you've done nothing. Because in reality, you still have an entire 50 more percent to go from that 2%. You got to work 50 times harder from that 2% just to get to that point B from point A. But in reality, not every day is going to progress the same way. So what you feel that is contentment, what you feel is slow growth. Again, what you feel is slow growth that felt like nothing, but you gave your best effort and you stayed consistent with it for that day or that week or that month or that year. Those efforts feel like nothing because you're just trying to get from point A to point B. Case in point, I'll admit. So, November or last year, I had a goal where I wanted to save at least $3,000 into a Chase savings account. I got into a car accident. I was almost halfway to I was over halfway to $1,000. I was almost at $2,000. No, I'll take that back. I was over halfway to $1,000 saved. My goal really by the end of the year, by the end of December, was to have $2,000 saved in that account. I was doing very well, but until that car accident, I had to. Once that car accident happened, I had to wipe that entire account clean just so I could afford to pay to get everything redone on the vehicle so I could have my truck back. Mind you, in the days I was saving, just to get to that thousand felt like the hardest grind of my life. Not only was I penny pinching and budgeting every last little dollar that I got, it all got wiped away. So now, like even now, I'm still back in the situation where I'm trying to save the money. I found other ways to do it. I thank God that I wasn't harmed, injured, any severe type of way. Neither was the other person in the accident. Praise God. But at the same time, that was my situation. And mentally, in November, December, shoot, even before then, October, September, August, when I was originally starting to save that money and put that money aside in that Chase savings account, I was like, man, this is gonna take forever. I really wanted to save $300, but I can only save 150 right now. I really wanted to save an extra $200 into that account, but I can only afford to do 100 today. Like those feelings, they catch up. That perception of mind, that framework of thinking, it only holds you down. So where I could have been content with like, oh well, at least I still have something I can put aside, which that's where I'm at now mentally, is where like I still have money I can put aside. I'm very grateful that I can still put money aside and still save money. I had the mentality of like, this is going to take too long. Why do I only have X, Y, and Z? I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasn't achieving my goal. I felt like my goal would take way longer to achieve. I felt like there was no way that I was actually going to reach that goal by the end of the year. Unfortunately, I did not because of the car accident. But I learned, again, with contentment, you learn to progress in different ways. And you also learn how to have different tools so that you can progress faster. This is why you have to be okay with contentment. Contentment is what brings you the ability to find grace. Being content with what you have is acceptance of life. Being content with what you got is an acceptance of what has been removed in order to give you more, to actually help you grow. It is peace. It's grace. I'm still working on that goal too. I'm gonna save that $3,000 just to have. I don't plan on spending it. I just want to have it just because safety net, and I'm getting there, like actively or passively now, because again, through that grace and that contentment that I found in the fact that I still have some sort of funds to set aside, to lock up and keep away, in that process and in that contentment and gratitude of knowing that I have the ability to do those things, I've learned that there are more tools that can make it easier for me to reach my goals. Contentment is the acceptance of what is. I feel like if you're anxious or an overthinker, you're living in the future. If you're depressed, you're too busy living in the past. Yes, I can speak on these because I deal with them both almost daily. But contentment really is acknowledging the piece of what is. Not it is what it is, but the peace in knowing that you are, God is, and life is, and that you have the ability to create anything that you decide that you want to be a part of your reality. Once you start to recognize that, life becomes easier to work and grow through. It becomes easier to create outcomes, and it becomes easier for you to think through. You no longer think about how to get to a certain goal in a certain amount of time. It becomes, what can I do today that'll set me up so that way getting to this goal is easier tomorrow. You start to take things day by day instead of seeing things as a week to week or a month to month, or how do I get to or thinking about how do I get to a certain goal in X amount of time. Is that what you want to do? In reality, contentment has nothing to do with barometers. It's simply looking at what is in the present, what has been removed in order for you to achieve, in order for you to grow, and accepting that as your reality. Complacency takes that away. Failure, it doesn't even acknowledge anything that you've done to succeed. It just points out your flaws. Contentment is an extension of what is gratitude. It's actually a precursor of defining your gratitude. Can you be at peace with what has been or what is in your life? What you have done to get to where you are currently. And I feel like that's the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway from all of this. You can't see life in a way that acknowledges your gratitude. You can't see life in a way where you can acknowledge the things that you do have in a positive manner, or you can't recognize your peace within what might be chaos, or your peace in what might be in a time of unrecognition, or a time of trial, or a time of what you feel like might be isolation. You will struggle with being content in life. You will continue to find things to do. You will continue to seek to make changes, to answer questions that don't need answers or that never should have existed in the first place. Because a lot of the time, where people are content or where they should be content, they see that as quiet or failure or distance. When in reality, it's just it needs to be a reframing of the mind and the thinking of how they choose to see their reality. You are not at distance. You are not in isolation. You are meant to find peace with what you have. You are meant to be okay with what you've been blessed with. You're meant to be okay with what you have lost. You should be okay with the fact that something has been removed in order for you to be where you are right now. You may not be making that 10x progression right now. You might not be making that 2x progression right now. You might even feel like that you're failing completely. You just feel like that things are going day by day. You feel like all your days are starting to bleed together. You might be starting to feel like things are getting boring, or things are becoming very routine, and your routine's getting very lackluster. There's not much change. There's not many things that are exciting. But in reality, you just went through a trial, you were tested, you were blessed, or something was removed, you learned a lesson, and now you're here in a space where you're supposed to not only show gratitude, but just be okay with what you have and where you are. You're not supposed to be making any extra moves. You're supposed to continue the path that you are on, because that's what's helped you grow even 1x. That's what's helped you grow just 2%. If you can't choose to recognize that growth, then maybe you're going to have to go through another season of trial. You're probably going to have to go through some more what feels like failures. You're going to be feeling like you're going to have to get tested again, or you might end up getting tested again, just so that way you can learn that you need to be okay with what you have. Contentment is peace. And I'll leave you with these things. Contentment is peace. It is not complacency. It is not failure. Contentment is stillness. Contentment is protection. Contentment is a time of reflection and introspection, where it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, well, what can I do better? What did I not need? What has helped me grow? What do I need to do now to make things easier in the systems that I already have in place that have helped me get to where I'm at currently? Life is no longer it is what it is state. It is forever going to be a, can I continue to meet myself where I'm at and then continue to uplift myself as I go? Am I going to be comfortable in my own trials and tribulations? Am I going to be able to recognize that, yes, I'm going through something, but I'm still blessed to be where I'm at? Yes, I don't feel like anybody's hearing me. No, I don't feel like anyone is understanding me. I feel like I'm at distance or at odds with everyone, but somehow I'm still okay. Will you recognize that? Will you choose to recognize your own peace, even though it has nothing to do with anyone else? It shouldn't have anything to do with anyone else. It should be how you decide to see your life in moments of gratitude and in moments of where you need to just be content with what you have, instead of trying to find or create answers to problems that have never existed or should not have existed. And that's what I feel like the issue is with most people, including myself. Right when you're supposed to feel content, you're like, it's not enough. This doesn't feel right. Something's wrong. I don't like this. So you go looking to create solutions or ways to feel better, or go looking for different sources to make things grow artificially, essentially, instead of continuing what you've been doing in order to grow organically. You can't win that way. It brings you down. Choose contentment. Have gratification. Have gratitude. Have peace. That being said, this video brought you any value, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if this is something that you feel like you relate to, or if you know someone who's been going through a similar situation, share this video with them, or if they feel like they need a little bit of motivation, because this is just motivation, but that's not going to make you be disciplined. You have to continue to be consistent. You have to continue to apply. You have to internalize these thoughts, these different frameworks of thinking, and then apply them in your own life consistently in order to develop that discipline, in order to feel contentment in those moments where you feel like maybe something isn't enough, or what you have just isn't enough. Because it is. You have more than enough right where you are. The only thing that needs to change is your mindset and the amount of effort that you give in. You give 100%, give 110. You give 110, give 150. If you're only giving 5%, try to give 10. If you can't give 5% and you can only give 1, keep giving 1% every single day, but don't stop. If that's what's helping you grow, and that's what's helping you see those 0.5, 1%, 10x, 30x percentages in growth, in helping you get to the goals that you want to achieve, then keep doing those things. Don't do nothing else. Like, share, and subscribe. Give this video to someone, especially if you found value in it. Post it to your timelines, post it to your stories, post it to your feed. Trust me, I will find it and I will interact. I love interacting with y'all online. Leave a comment, share the video, subscribe. I don't know how many times I'm gonna say it. If you like the music you hear in the video, if you like the value that was being provided in the video, or if you're just like looking at my face and listening to me talk, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see y'all when I see y'all. Stay blessed, stay safe. I love y'all, and I will talk to y'all later. This was the fit today. Literally gray sweats, Crocs, and a black tee. And these glasses, which are pretty fly. I want more tattoos. I like how I look on this angle too.